Welcome to this second part in the Org Confessions webinar series. My name is Ian Gotts, and we're going to be talking about org cleanup in this session. So thank you for joining us. As always, we will be recording this session and sending the recording out to all of you who have registered. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat, and I will answer them as we go along, or we can have some time at the end to answer them. So let's get started. So this is the overall implementation methodology. You analyze your requirements, you map processes, you write user stories, then you build, configure, code, test, and hopefully you document and understand what the changes are, the impact of those changes. You then deliver it by loading data, going through the deployment and release cycle, and then you go into operate. So the first webinar was all about business analysis. Again, we will be sending you an email with a link to that recording as well as the recording of this session. This session is focused on build, particularly the cleanup activity. Obviously, future webinars will be covering operate as well. You'll see at the top there's a URL, train.elements.cloud. The business analysis and the build content is now available as a trailhead style training course. So if you go to train.elements.cloud, there is a training course that covers the whole implementation methodology to put this into context, and then a more detailed step-by-step for business analysis, and then one for build. So what inspired these webinars was orgconfessions.com, and I'm sure many of you have already found the site. These are anonymous implementation org horror stories. And when we did the root cause analysis, we identified some common themes. Business analysis, architecture, documentation, DevOps, all were big gaps. So that's why we decided we needed to provide the training, but also these webinars. And when I look at the org confessions from a cleanup perspective, there are actually three areas where cleanup is impacted. You'd think it was all about documentation. If I haven't documented what I've built, then I don't understand what I can delete, and therefore my org gets messy. But actually, the business analysis is really important as well, and we'll see how that comes out. And then the other part is user training. If we have a messy org, people don't understand what they're meant to be doing, which then has an impact on customer data. If I have 52 pick lists, I just choose the one that will get me out of this screen as quickly as possible. So those things are all interrelated. How well you understand the system, the analysis, how well you've documented it, and then that has a knock-on effect in terms of user training. So it all starts with a metadata dictionary. Salesforce recommends it. We recommend it. I think anybody else who's been involved in systems implementation says that you have to have some way of tracking the metadata and starting to document it. So it all starts with understanding what's in your org. And for many of you, it's a bit of a black hole. People pour in fields, pick list items, reports, workflows, and you don't really get a very clear picture of it. So what you need is a metadata dictionary where you've synchronized every single metadata item in your org, and then you can start to make sense of it. Now, there are several different approaches you could use for building that metadata dictionary. People have talked about building Excel spreadsheets, using a quick document, maybe even creating a custom object inside Salesforce, and for every metadata item you create a record. And whilst those all seem like a good idea because they are, in quotes, free, there actually is a cost associated with maintaining them. So let's just consider some of the requirements you have for your metadata dictionary. Number one, you need to keep it up to date, in sync with the org. But hang on, which org? Production, Sandbox, Dev, Sandbox UAT. So there are multiple orgs that you need to keep your metadata dictionary in sync with. And every time anybody makes any change, that needs to make its way back into the dictionary. The other piece is what documentation can we automatically generate, maybe from the metadata API, to make sure that this metadata dictionary doesn't come in empty, but actually we've provided some level of documentation already, so automated documentation. And the third is that we can do some analysis. Once we've got all the metadata on one place, we can start to work out where fields are used. We can start to work out which are the most important metadata items, which are least used. So there's a bunch of heavy lifting that we can do behind the scenes if we've actually got this in a managed application. So you could build an Excel spreadsheet, but why would you? Life is too short. So let's have a look at what a metadata dictionary looks like for a moment inside Elements Catalyst. So here it is. We've installed a small managed package inside, in this case, the production org, and 3 clicks, 2 minutes to set it up, and the sync has then run. The sync takes between, 10 minutes and 2 hours, depending on how big and complex your org is. And you can set it up so it synchronizes every night. So when you wake up in the morning, you know that it's completely up to date. So you can see here on the right-hand side, it's telling us how big the org is. This obviously is just a demo org. It's a lot smaller than some of the orgs we see. What did I look at one the other day? 979 custom objects, 19,000 fields, 13,000 dashboards. Can't remember how many, I think 40,000 reports. So some of these orgs, if they are over any period of time, get pretty scary pretty quickly. And again, we have all the metadata items here. If I say just go down to one area, let's say a custom object, rather than a standard, look at that custom object. There's the project object. It could be a standard object, but this happens to be a custom one. But now you can start to see we're doing a bit of analysis, telling you how many fields, how many page layouts, how many records by record type. So maybe I can clean out some record types. An assessment of every single field to say, is there any data in it? Can I clean it out? So this is an idea of actually being able to do some analysis on the data and provide you with a lot more insights without you having to do anything. Also looking at, say, every field, and saying for every field, how well populated is it? So this is at an object level. If I went down a little bit further, let's just pick a field. What analysis can we do on a field? Well, first of all, the Details tab, we can tell you about the field, its API name, what type of field it is, if it's got pick list values. In the usage, we can tell you whether it's populated by record type. And then we can tell you where is it used. So it's used in 5 page layouts, it's used in 2 process builder workflows, used in 2 validation rules. And it's not used in any of the other 12 places where we've looked. And a release that comes out at the end of February will actually allow you, when you click here, not just to see the first level of usage, but actually an entire tree, so you can see that this is used in this workflow is used here, so you can start to see almost all the way down the food chain to work out what the implications of making a change are. We can also tell you which profiles and permission sets have access to this field. We could track GDPR. So if you're worried about GDPR or CCPA in terms of which fields are most important. And for every metadata item, you can have a discussion. And for every metadata item, you can add documentation. So you've got a place now for A, an understanding about what's in your org. B, it's a place where you can put all the documentation in whatever format. And C, it's a place where you can have those discussions rather than an email. So what we're trying to do is make the metadata dictionary the center of all documentation configuration information. And we are confident that A, it's up to date because it's synced with the org, and B, some of the analysis has been done for us. So that should A, short circuit a lot of the work we're doing, but also give us some confidence that we can make changes. And a couple of other little things. One here is that actually I forgot to mention details. There is the Salesforce description and the Salesforce help text. So if I update them here, they automatically get updated inside Salesforce. And we'll see this right panel here can appear in lots of different places. It appears in our application, but it can pop up in a Salesforce setup page. It can pop up in a record page, and we're starting to integrate it into other ISV's applications. So that data dictionary follows you around because we know how hard it is to get people to use different applications. So I had one question that's just come in about sandboxes versus production, and let me answer it now. If you install a managed package into a production, it will build this metadata dictionary. If I then install it in Sandbox 1, it will build a data dictionary, a separate data dictionary for that sandbox. But what's important is that any documentation I add here for this budget field in Sandbox 1, that document, if this field exists in the production, that all the documentation and all the discussions will instantly be visible. If this field hasn't made it through to production yet, when we deploy it, all the documentation will follow it. So you only need to worry about documenting and having the discussions in one place. And if we have all of those syncing overnight, they will all stay connected. The way the guys have architected this is really clever, and they've thought about how you would manage multi-org environments and that whole pipeline of how you move things through pipelines. So I don't want to spend lots of time talking about the data dictionary. You came here to understand how to help clean up your org. But now we have the basis of all the information, which is our data dictionary. We can go back and have a quick think about what we're going to do in terms of improving and cleaning up our org. So we wrote a book called Rapid Results, which has got some quick wins in it. So one of the first thing is how to un-CVS your page layouts. There are so many people there with hundreds of fields, so their page layout looks like a CVS receipt. The second is how can we improve the user help and feedback to make sure that those fields which are important, the users understand how to fill them out. And the third one is deleting managed packages. So let me show you how we do that very quickly. You can download the book, and it has a step-by-step for each of these. Go to Elements.cloud/RR and you can download the ebook. So let's go and have a quick look at how we would un-CVS a page layout. So you remember I said that this right-hand panel can appear in lots of places? Well, it can appear inside setup, but it can also appear in a page layout. So if you go to a page layout, this happens to be Lightning, and you look all the way down there, you can see field after field after field after, anyway, I've no idea which of these. I can even see I've got 4 status fields on the right-hand side. How on earth do I work out which of those can or should be deleted? So the Details tab in Lightning is identical to the main page in Classic. So as this is just for admins, let me go to the Classic view. And if I go to that page layout, clean up project, there is that identical view that you saw in the Details tab of the Lightning view. And if I go to the Chrome extension, the Elements Chrome extension, and click Show, it will pop the right panel. And it's now put an icon next to every single field. So now I can start looking at a field. So if you remember that budget field we were looking at earlier, there is the right-hand panel. There's some help text. The budget must be in US dollars. I can go and update that help text right here. I could update the description. I could look at the usage, and I can see that this is not used in the operations record type. So this happens to be the change record type, but if I was in, and therefore I can see for change, this is a well-used field. But if this record type was, say, operations, maybe this field is not used. There doesn't seem to be any data. But I can see that it's used in workflow and validation rules. I can see it's a high-impact field. It's important. Maybe if I go and look at the status field, what's that one there? Okay, so the help text doesn't make sense. Called status. Let's have a quick look at usage. Okay, so it's clearly used, so maybe that's the field we should be using. What about that one? Like, fantastic. The description says not sure if this is used. No documentation at all. Wow, okay, this is interesting. It's used in one process builder workflow, which I could go and look at, and it's used in 2 validation rules. So this has now got my detective antenna tweaking going. Maybe I need to go and find out exactly what's happening with this field, because this feels a bit quirky. Look at the next status field. No data, only used in a few page layouts. So maybe this is a potential for being deleted. But you can see how very quickly on one page we're pulling together both the analysis of the fields, an understanding about what the API name is, the ability to edit the help text. If we discover this is actually the right field and we actually want to go and update the help text there and we can update the description. So as we're working our way through a page layout, which we know maybe is a problem because we have users complaining about it, we can start to do some very quick cleanup. For some of those of you who are a bit more eagle-eyed will have noticed that some of those icons are purple, not orange. So the orange icon is the Salesforce help, but with one of the Elements licenses, you can actually provide pop-up help. What that means is if I click on there, it will pop up documents that you've added in the metadata dictionary as help. So the second quick win was, how do we improve the help? First of all, you could just add the Salesforce help text, but you could go to, say, this field here called budget. In my documentation tab, I can add a document. You can see I've got several documents here. I've got some links to process diagrams. I can make those pop up as help. So simply by saying, make available in Classic, make available in Lightning. This one here, budgeting, let's just say, let's show that one in Classic. If I go back to that field, haven't even had to hit refresh. And there is that new field. And I can rate it. I can say, yeah, I think that was helpful. So you can start to add extended help. That help could also be a process diagram. So if you've drawn a process diagram to help people understand what the flow is, then you can then start linking those process steps. So now I can start to say, okay, that's the flow. This is how a project is used. So there were 2 things that I talked about. One was going through and deciding which fields you can remove. And the second is working out which fields are important. And therefore you can either add Salesforce help, or if you're using our help, you can add documentation and make that extended help, which is the purple icon. And this works in both Classic and Lightning. So that pop-up help would work in Lightning as well. Once Lightning becomes a bit more Lightning. So, sorry, I know confusing people. I flicked very quickly from being an admin looking at help pages and then jumped to users. The pop-up help is entirely focused on end users. So if you buy an end user license for help, then every end user, yes, can see the pop-up help. But it's you as the admin that's setting that up. So the other question that's been asked is, well, that pop-up right, that panel looks fantastic in the page layout. Can I see it inside setup? Absolutely. So if you're anywhere inside our application and you see this little icon, you can click there and it will launch setup straight from our application, straight into Lightning or straight into setup on the page that you want. And with the Chrome extension, there's that right panel. There we go. So we've now got a data dictionary. You've seen that we can start to add documentation as an admin, and I also talked about the fact you had an end user license that you can start to then provide help to those end users. So it might be useful just very quickly to talk about licensing. You need at least one editor, $750 a year. You need at least one Salesforce connection license, which will deal with one production and up to 5 sandboxes, which is $1,000 a year. And the end user license is $10 a year. And if you're a non-profit, then there's a 50% discount. And there's a page on our website called Pricing where there's a calculator. You can put the numbers in, and there's also an ROI calculator. So what have we looked at? Oh, well, I was then going to go and talk about how would we think about cleaning up managed packages. So we synchronize all the managed packages. So this is the other quick win. There's a managed package. So this one called CCMI. First of all, you'd have to click Update Population for us to get all the data percentage filled, because we don't do that automatically. I happen to know that this is a project management app. So if I had a quick look and say, well, is it used? I could go to the objects page and have a quick look and say, well, is a project management tool? Project is probably the major object. Yeah, it probably is. But I can see here, no records. So that's already telling me that maybe this hasn't been used. If I want to get into more detail, I find there are records, but I want to understand how well used the records are. There is a report called Managed Package Analysis, and that will then go through and it will work out every single field for this managed package. Where are those fields used? Have they got any data? And are they populated, even if they're on standard objects and custom objects? Sorry, the question came in about pricing. I ran through that very quickly. Admin, $750 per year. Salesforce connection license, $1,000 per year. End user license, $10 per year. Correct. So they're the quick wins. How to try and clean your page layouts, how to provide user help and feedback. And then the third one is how to delete managed packages. So there are some quick wins that you go through and start to build up some confidence that the effort you're taking for these cleanup is making sense. Then we could actually go into more what I might call deep clean, where you're now starting to really dig into an area. And the problem that people have is, I've got 1,000 Apex classes, where do I start? And our view is you come at it from a different perspective. You come at it from an operational perspective. So you pick an area, say the case objects or the account and opportunity, and work out at a very high level, what's the sort of high level business process for how does that work? And then for each step in the process, try and link to which item inside Salesforce is used to make that particular step work. And then find any documentation and attach that to the metadata dictionary. And then go around for every metadata item and then work your way for each process step. And then you will have items which aren't used. They're somehow, you've never connected them inside. So there are metadata items that like workflows, page layouts that don't seem to be used. So that either means you didn't find the process, as in you didn't document the process, or they're generally not used. So what do I mean by that? Let's just have a quick look at a process diagram. This is we call it UPN. It's a universal process notation. That's the sort of notation, but very simple. Activities, request support, resolve sales, resolve technical support request. It's a new issue. So we test the issue, we can't reproduce it, so we go that way. We can reproduce it, so we go that way. So this is, it won't take very long to draw this top level diagram for how your support process works. But now you can start linking any one of these steps to what in, say, the case object gets used. Oh, we've got this workflow. Oh, we've got this trigger. Oh, this email template gets used. Oh, there's a validation rule. And you can start connecting the process diagrams drawn inside Elements with the paperclip. You can link them to the metadata item inside Salesforce, inside our metadata dictionary, and then you can start to see which of the items are well used. And a very simple activity. So don't try and boil the ocean. Pick an area. This is how a case gets used and raised for, in this case, for a support request. And I would suggest take it a chunk at a time. Let's pick this area off. Fantastic. We got some benefits out of that. We got to clean up some page layouts. We got to remove some fields. We got to work out why some process builder workflows were there. Maybe they can be switched off. Then pick another area. Pick, say, the opportunity. Then pick another area. And over time, you'll find you're cleaning up the org. You know which areas that you've got problems with. Or if you pull up the metadata dictionary in one of our reports called the org analysis report, that will clearly give you some idea about where you've got problems. But you, as admins, you know you've maxed out fields on an object, or you know you've got process builder workflows or flows that don't trigger correctly. And this simple act of mapping the process will start to make sense of it for you. And you can see that some of the processes actually have a corner, which means they have a lower level diagram. So how do I test the issue? Click on the lower level diagram. I can now draw a lower level diagram to get into more detail. But the trick here is keeping it simple so you can engage your subject matter experts, your end users, to understand what really happens, so you can then understand what really is being used inside Salesforce. So we only had half an hour. This was a very quick sprint through some of the things that you can do. The good news is that everything I've talked about is available in that training course at train.elements.cloud, and it takes you through everything I've talked about in a lot more detail. So train.elements.cloud. If you want to go and trial the sync to your org, so you can actually play looking at your data, 14-day trial, go to the App Exchange, go and download the managed package into a sandbox or production. 3 clicks, 2 minutes to get it set up, and about an hour or two later, you'll then be able to look at your org and see what's happening there. Down the bottom, a couple of other resources. People look at our process diagrams and say, but why would I use that rather than flowcharts? There's a document talking about that. And for those of you who haven't discovered it, orgconfessions.com and org.confessions.com, the movie. So I will thank you very much for joining us. This recording and the deck will be sent to you. I'll turn the recording off and happy to pick up any other questions. I'll be here for as long as we want.